Okay, welcome to the public meeting of March 15, 2021. A public meeting held under Section 34 of the Planning Act is now declared open. The purpose of the public meeting is to consider an application submitted by Chris Fleming on behalf of 848-2128 Canada Inc. to amend the Township's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, Bylaw 22-2003. The Planning Act requires that public notice, that notice of the public meeting be given at least 20 days before the public meeting is held. Would the planner confirm the date notice was given?
Yes, on February 24th, the notice was mailed to abutting property owners and posted.
Okay. Notice of this public meeting having been given in accordance with the Planning Act, and now declare the meeting properly constituted to transact its business. Any person wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding the application being considered must send an email request to the Township office immediately following this meeting. Anyone who previously sent an email concerning the application will receive a digital notice of decision without further action. As required under Section 34-14-5 of the Planning Act, Council is required to inform the public of who is entitled to appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal under Section 34-11 and 19. Under Section 34-11, if Council decides to refuse an application or refuses or neglects to make a decision on an application within 90 days of the municipal clerk receiving the application, the applicant or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. Under Section 34-19, not later than 20 days after the giving of notice of passing of the bylaw, the applicant, any person or public body who made oral submissions at the public meeting or made a written submission to the council before the bylaw was passed, or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, may appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. Would the planner please describe the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Thank you. The property owners own a large property off of Clark Road. It's 350 acres in area. And they wanted to construct a new dwelling on this property. The reason this is coming for rezoning is there's already at least one other dwelling on the property, and the access, Clark Road is a seasonally maintained road. So we don't permit new dwellings generally to be constructed on seasonal roads. And likewise, certainly not a second dwelling on the property. So the one dwelling that exists is quite dilapidated and old, but nonetheless, it still does exist. And this zoning would permit the new home being built on the property, but the bylaw that I'm proposing to council will clarify that this is a recreational dwelling. It's on a seasonal road, and the township will, if we issue a permit, will be under no obligation to conduct maintenance on the road.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of the amendment? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the amendment? Are there any questions from members of council? Are there any written comments that were received?
No, I did not receive comments on this application.
Okay. This therefore completes the public meeting process. Council will give careful consideration to the application for zoning bylaw amendment. And without further comments or questions, I declare this public meeting closed. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting of March 15th, 2021. Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. Be it resolved that the Township of Greater Madawaska Council calls to order the March 15th, 2021 regular council meeting at 3 p.m. All in favor?
Too quick.
Favor? Are we frozen, Allison?
We might be. I see that some members appear to be frozen. So perhaps the members of council could speak they're in favor.
Yeah, I'm sitting here watching watching the screen, and I can see everything, so not sure what's frozen.
Glenn, you're in favor? Charles?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Lucy?
Yep.
Carried. And moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigelhoff. Be it resolved that the agenda of the council meeting March 15, 2021 be approved as amended with 8034 application to purchase township land, Peters. All in favor?
Yes, in favor.
Yes.
Yes.
That's carried. And is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? And I guess we should answer because it looks like most of us are froze up.
Nope.
No. No.
Okay, and before we start the delegations, I just want to make a notice that our past mayor, Isabel Christensen, has passed away. For any of you that did not realize, she served as a mayor for a term here and was very instrumental in many projects within the township. So our condolences go out to her family. And we'll move to the first delegation, and that is Marnie Peters and Martin Duffy application to purchase land. And we'll turn it over to you, Marnie.
Thanks very much, and thanks for having me here today to present. Just a bit about myself. So I've been a property owner, landholder, and resident here for 12 years. And I actually do a lot of work with the city of Ottawa in terms of master planning exercises. And I'm an internationally recognized expert in codes and standards. And I'm currently working with the International Standards Organization on the development of a number of standards. And I've also worked as an investigator for the Canadian Human Rights Commission. And so I'm very familiar with sort of code standards, bylaws, all the legalese that go with these types of processes. I recognize that you don't typically sort of accept applications to purchase land, but I would think that this is a bit of an exceptional circumstance. I know that I submitted a giant package of information to everybody in terms of the circumstances and about why we're interested in purchasing the land. I don't want to read through the whole thing. I hope everybody's had a chance to look at it. I know I sent just a short presentation to as well to accompany this. And Allison, just wondering if you put that up at this point.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So while she's trying to do that, I will just say we're looking to purchase a section of the land that's immediately adjacent to us. And you can just go to this is just my intro, you can go to that, thanks. And so what had happened is our neighbors accidentally built on the existing right-of-way that was there, which was the X line. And rather than have them move their house, which is what the city of Ottawa would have done, they came to an agreement with Township that they would take over that unowned way and deed to the township the section of land that was blocked in X's. So this map is actually taken from the public notice that was provided to us. So you can sort of see where everybody's property land the township was taking over, and then where my property is with my husband. So next slide, please. And the following slide just shows you sort of the actual pieces of land. And you can see how big the blue line parcel F, parcel 5, part F, was going to be sort of this orphan block of land that did belong to my neighbors and was now separated from their property with their house on it. So that was the piece of property that we were interested in buying. And so at the time when there was the public meeting of switching the unopened right of way, we had some real concerns at that time because we didn't sort of want public land immediately next to our property line, partly because of the way our house is designed and the way it faces, but for privacy reasons. And so we actually had a meeting with Luke at that time to sort of express our concerns and what was happening. And he said, no, the only thing that's happening is we're just switching where the right of way is. And so we thought, okay, that's fine. We were able to see the space between our property and where the new right of way was. And so we were okay with that. So if you can go to the next slide. Thanks. And so, there was a council resolution in 2015 about this needing to happen and about what had happened, and the fact that the only thing that was going to happen was that there would be this exchange of the unopened road allowance. And even at that time, council recognized that there was a need to have accountability and transparency with this because it impacted on a number of property holders, ourselves included. So if you go to the next slide, please. And so, when we talk about one of Luke's reports indicated everything that was supposed to be happen as part of these bylaws that were passed in 2016, which is that sort of our neighbors who are Grennan and McQuaig were receiving parcel C, which is where they built their house. Parcel B, they were being given part of the road allowance because of, they were no longer had a road allowance to get to their property. Part E, of course, was to be given to the township. That was the exchange of the unopened road allowance. And then part F, that big section between us and the road allowance, was to be retained by our neighbors. And so, we saw this, we thought, okay, everything kind of played out just like we were told it was going to. And as part of the public discussion, it was, that notice was given in accordance with the bylaw, and there was no planning issues identified. So, that's true. We didn't identify there being a planning issue in the fact that we thought the township was going to get over, because we'd been informed that no, they weren't going to. And in fact, there was reports showing we weren't. And so, of course, the basis for doing this land swap was so that the township would always have at least some road allowance, unopened road allowance, to get to Ferguson Lake. So if you go to the next slide, please. And so when I saw sort of subsequent report saying the intention was to pass a bylaw and register a merger agreement, making a continuous holding, preventing the sale to a third party. Well, this intention was never discussed as part of any public meeting. It was never discussed when we spoke with Luke about our issues and concerns. And so suddenly something that was never talked about is now being referred to as having been discussed as part of a public meeting. And so it wasn't. So it's kind of like, I get that time passes and sort of maybe things change. And I get that the township has the right to act in its interests, but it still has to act within its interests following its own bylaws, which is that notice needs to be given when there's planning issues. And so to say that we hadn't, that there was no planning issues identified, well, that's not really true, because we identified that we didn't want to happen what has actually happened. And now, so instead of the township owning a piece of road allowance that was 4,200 square meters, now almost 1,200 square meters. And so if you go to the next slide. So this is the map overlaid on an actual satellite shot of Ferguson Lake. So you can see where our neighbors have accidentally built on the old road allowance, and the new road allowance is in checkers, and that's sort of that yellow band shows how wide it would have been, and the blue line would have been the property line between the township and our property, which is the red line. But what in fact has happened is the township now owns that entire stretch of what's the green line to the red line. And so it's practically right next to our house. And, we probably would have designed our house a little differently had we known that there was going to be a public access immediately next to our bedroom and bathroom. And so we're making this application to purchase because if at the time we had known that a merger agreement making a contiguous holding was part of the plan, we would have objected at the time, and we would have said, okay, If you want to register that, fine, but we want right of first refusal to buy that property from our neighbor. I mean, the property is of no value to anybody except to them or except to us as the property holder on the other side. It's not great access to Ferguson Lake. It's essentially through a swamp. So part of our concern, and it's already happened, is that people start to walk through it, realize they're walking in a swamp, and look for the closest piece of dry land, which happens to be our backyard. And so we're just looking to sort of be able to create a bit more of a buffer and a bit more of a boundary between what is that unopened right of way and what is our property line. And so that's why I am here today making this application to purchase.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, Luke, do you have any comments?
I think I do have a report on this council package that speaks to it, but I think the big there's a kind of a difference in terminology here that's important to note, is that our bylaws reflect the sale and disposition of lands. And what happened here was we acquired land. And so I don't want council to think that we didn't act in accordance with our bylaws, because the acquisition of land is not subject to our land disposal bylaw. So I don't see that there was any issue there. And that was also referenced in this in the presentation, the fact that if we didn't acquire the land, there also would have been a merger agreement placed on it, because it was never and I could speak to this in my report, but it was never the intention that they built on a road allowance, and by the way, you're going to get a free separately conveyable property out of this, or like a severed lot. That wasn't the deal. And I don't believe, in my opinion, I would submit that to council, that we owed a neighbor the negotiation of whether we would place a merger agreement on this. The discussions were between the property owner and the municipality. So with the merger agreement, it wouldn't have been available in any case.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, Luke, if we were disposing of the piece of property, we would consult the neighbors on each side. But when we're acquiring property, we do not do that.
And that's what I have this in my report as well, but I think I would recommend that council really consider that the next time that we have a road widening or somebody gives land to the township, do we have to consult the neighbor to acquire land? And, I don't recommend that that's a practice that we would like to set precedent for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions of council, of Ms. Peters?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may, the land which you would like to acquire now, there's the new strip land that replaced the previous right of way, and then there was the additional piece of land next to your property.
Mhm.
Are you proposing that you would be offered the opportunity to purchase the entire piece of land, including the right of way, or just that additional piece that's next to your property?
No, we were just interested in the additional piece. I mean, the plan was like when we knew what had happened with our neighbors, we wanted sort of everything to shake out, the new road allowance to be put into place, all the paperwork to get done. And then then we'd be able to sort of approach our neighbors to buy essentially what to them is now an orphan piece, because the township now owns a strip of land in them. So we're looking at taking over the new unopened road allowance. And in fact, we're open to discussions about not even having the whole thing, but we would like to create an additional buffer next to our property line from what is township land and what is our land. And to Luke's point, you're right. You don't have to negotiate with every neighbor every time you want to do something with a specific piece of property. But if during the initial public meeting, it had been step A is we're going to switch this, step B is we're going to register the merger agreement that makes a contiguous holding, right then and there we would have said, okay, you know what, instead of a contiguous merger agreement, we would like to buy that property on the other side. And really it's in as much to protect the land as anything. We're not looking to develop it. We're not looking to do anything different to it. We're just looking to protect our privacy, which is, why we bought the land that we did, because at the time, well, and it still is, that piece of property was explained to us that it was registered as it being environmentally protected. There's a sort of swamp creek that runs through it. And so it's really, we're not looking to build on it. It's really about protecting our privacy. And so I'm looking for a win-win solution here. I'm not looking to be sort of difficult, but I just sort of feel like the one thing that we explained we didn't want to happen is sort of like happen. And how did it happen without us knowing? And so that's really where I'm at today, is I'd like to find some kind of solution that works for both parties.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything further, Counsel?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Great presentation. You obviously did a lot of research. You know what you're doing. My question now to our planner is, and I know it would precede probably everyone here on council or staff, why did we have a right of way onto Ferguson Lake? Like, what was the purpose of us having that right of way?
Well, I think that, more accurately be referred to as an unopened road allowance, which
Unopened road allowance.
exists throughout the township. It's from the original surveyor days. They thought we needed more roads than we actually did, so they put those in every third concession or so, or third lot.
Oh, I see. And have we sold it before?
Since I've been here, we've sold, this is one of them where there was a house located on it. Another one over close to the township office where there was a house located on it, and one other case, one other file that I've closed out. So I wrote the bylaw for the sale and disposition of road allowances, and I put in there the requirement is legal or technical reasons. And so when somebody's house is located on there, sure, can make sense to me.
Mhm.
But when it, again, if it's a privacy issue, these are, I've mentioned in the office here before, I get calls almost daily for people saying, well, I'd like to property bigger. And we turn out to be the abutting property owner. So it's a common question.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Okay, thank you for your presentation. This will be coming up in either tonight's council meeting and handled at that point, or in a future council meeting. So it'll be given careful consideration at that time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
And we'll move to our next delegation, which is Greenview Environmental Management, Tyler Peters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for having me today. If I may, Allison, may I attempt to share my screen,
Yes,
please, and thank you.
I think you should be able to now.
Great. So if I can just slide presentation going. So if everyone can see the initial slide. Thank you very much for having me today. I put together a few slides, Mr. Mayor and Council, just to update the township with respect to the Ferguson Lake Road project. My name is Tyler Peters, and I'm a project director with Greenview, and I've been working on this project with staff and some members of council since its inception. Today, on a progress update on the overall aspects of the project, various components to a certain extent. We will talk a little bit about key findings of the work completed to date. We'll be discussing a preferred alternative as well in terms of the planning process, which I'll touch on as we move through. And then next steps and timelines for the project as we move it forward. So I'm sure council here, the Ferguson Lake Road was identified by the township for reconstruction and renewal for some time. It's been you can see in the photos, it's a very curvy, beautiful area road, rural road, connecting primarily the southern portion of the township to the northern portion of the township by a flat road. In late 2019, funding was secured for reconstruction of a portion of the road, roughly 5.7 kilometers, which has been set from Campground Side Road, so just south of Campground Road, north to Canelli Mountain Road. Overall project work initiated in spring of 2020 for this particular project. Once funding announcements were made and some of the particulars were put through, it got going reasonably early on in 2020. So the overall scope and schedule for the project includes kind of three parts. Some you could look at it in two. One is planning. There's a planning element to it, which falls under the municipal class environmental assessment process. And secondly, there's the design and engineering process. Under the municipal class environmental assessment, there are a number of studies that would fall in as typical to a project of this nature. We have natural heritage and environmental impact studies. We have cultural heritage and archaeological studies. We have geotechnical studies, which are focused more on the road design and road corridor. We have our road corridor engineering, which I'll speak a little bit more about as well, of course, today. And coming out of that work is a quantity generation, which feeds into the financial and economic analysis, being a construction cost estimate. Once the planning process through the Class EA is completed, next phase, as I'll show in a graph next on the process, is the detailed design and implementation phase. So the detailed design, engineering, and construction phases are outside of the Class EA process. Our preliminary schedule that was put together with funding application has us with planning, engineering, and design commencing in 2020 and anticipated to be complete in 2021. So this year, looking to tender the project for construction in late 2021, so still this fall. And the primary elements of construction could commence as early as January of 2022, assuming things continue on the track they're on. So just a quick graphic, and I apologize for the clarity. It's amazing that we can't get this in a clear version. Our process is currently under the Schedule C process. So we've identified a problem or opportunity. We've initiated some of our initial consultations. We've come up with alternative solutions. We've inventoried our natural, social, and economic environments as they stand today. We've done an impact analysis, and again, I have slides that summarize some of these points. We've looked at the evaluation of those alternative solutions. And today is part of the consultation process, both, of course, with the municipality, and secondly, will be with the public and stakeholders as we move through the Class EA process. And then a preferred solution will be determined and confirmed, and we'll move through the balance of the process, where we go into detailed design and get into tender documents and construction. This is an overall process diagram that you may have seen from other projects. That we've considered working with the township late 2019 when we looked at the funding application. We're looking at reasonable and feasible perspectives for constructing Ferguson Lake Road. We have included in our review the do nothing status quo alternative. So in the event that nothing is done, we want to consider, to some extent, we want to consider what the impacts are to the environment various environments in the event that the road is left as is and continues to operate with increasing traffic and safety concerns. So the 4 alternatives we're presenting and have reviewed throughout the process today. First being a 90-kilometer-an-hour design speed alignment, so both horizontal and vertical, with associated road and right-of-way geometry. So that is per the per TAC. TAC is a transportation guidelines that are considered in projects of this type in nature. The second alternative is a 60-kilometer-an-hour design speed. Now, design speed, again, is different than a posted speed with associated road and right-of-way geometry, again, per transportation guidelines, which are, again, are conservative. The third alternative is a 60-kilometer-an-hour design speed with road and right-of-way geometry. And this includes site-specific geotechnical information where it helps us minimize the need for certain types of work, and of course, as a result, helps us minimize the need for spending additional funds. And the fourth one is a do-nothing status quo alternative, and as per usual, that one is just kind of carried forward and will get screened out initially or early on in the process. So you'll recall in the planning and engineering components, we've completed all of the items noted here on this slide: natural heritage work, cultural heritage work, geotechnical assessment, road preliminary road engineering and design, preliminary cost estimations, and we've initiated our public and stakeholder consultation program as is required by the Class EA process. The notice of study commencement is the formal initiation of the Class EA process, and that was issued on June 22nd of last year. And we received a number of feedback. A number of local folks received direct mailings and were engaged directly. And we have residents, property owners along the project alignment that have been engaged and have given us some feedback, and we're planning to re-engage them in the next steps in the process. From our planning studies, just summary here, folks, we've completed considerable inventories. Species at risk, or SAR, have been identified along the alignment, not necessarily impacted by the existing or the proposed completely, but those are considerations that have been taken into account and will continue to be reviewed as the process moves forward. The Ministry of the Environment, or Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, MECP, is our agency that we're working with respect to species at risk. And so that's been one of the key findings that's come out of the studies to date. We've completed cultural heritage and archaeological studies. A stage 1, which is not intrusive, recommends a stage 2 fieldwork and assessment that's primarily associated with pre-construction activities. So that's been slated for the coming construction or summer field season here in 2021 to address. And our geotechnical studies have been resulted in favorable conditions for the reconstruction and realignment, and also noting that there's availability in the reuse of materials, which is obviously a benefit to the project overall. In our planning, engineering, and design aspects, we've gone through the alternative solutions process. We've completed a preliminary design based on a focus of a preliminary alternative screening, and we'll talk more about that in a second. We've engaged on property boundary and legal surveying processes to review potential encroachments and possible encroachments based on the reconstruction of the road. We've initiated the process with Hydro One and Bell for utility relocations that may be necessary with respect to realignments. And we've been working with the county regarding the Constant Creek culverts. There are two large culverts near Kelly Road, just south of Kelly Road, that are slated for replacement, and that work is intended to be completed this summer prior to construction of the overall road by the township in 2022. All of those studies and other elements have been put together for a costing assessment, and on your slide you see a summary of the cost estimates completed for the four alternatives. Of course, for the status quo or do nothing alternative, there aren't really capital costs that come into play for that. So that particular alternative would be screened out prior to the completion of the full assessment. So with respect to alternative 1 and alternative 2, based on transportation principles and transportation guidelines for design, i.e. TAC, our costs due to the nature of the road with lots of hills, lots of slopes, the winding nature of the road, the costs for achieving the design speeds of 90 and 60 respectively are significant for the 5.7 kilometer section. Alternative 3, utilizing findings from the geotechnical report specific to the site, we're able to design an alignment that reduces the amount of cuts and fills and associated work significantly. And the results from those studies from a preliminary level at this point show us within the current funding construction budget. Moving forward for the variations from the studies in the Class A process to evaluate our alternative respect to primarily three environments, being the natural and physical environment, the socio-cultural environment, and the economic environment. Findings from those studies are evaluated in terms of what would be considered or often referred to as a potential effect or a potential net effect. And we look at those simply from a ranking from low to high, which is consistent with the Schedule B level of the study. And on the slide before you, you see this natural and physical environment components. And across the top are our four alternatives. Within that, we've applied a ranking based on the assessment completed and the findings we have to date. We have broken out wildlife habitat individually between terrestrial, aquatic, and avian, just because of the nature of some of the species at risk work that was completed as part of the studies. And we wanted to show that specific to how it relates to the different alignments and potential effects. Our sociocultural list of criteria includes land use and land needs to accommodate the alignment. So that would include the process of negotiating with existing landowners for some areas of lands to accommodate the alignment. Traffic and cultural heritage aspects, visual aesthetics that come into play as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have some public opinion already, which does support the project and some of the specifics of it. And public health and safety often connects with public opinion. The last criteria here primarily looks at capital cost or long-term operating costs as it would apply. And as I showed you in the previous slide, our capital costs are high for the first two alternatives. Alternative 3 primarily meets the funding and what would be considered reasonable and feasible for the project. Some highlights and challenges for the project to date. I mentioned earlier about the geotechnical study findings. So we've had good luck with existing soils and their ability to retain on steeper slopes and being able to reuse materials. We have currently a preferred alternative, being alternative 3. That estimate is within the funding amount that was allocated to the township. The project right now is on budget and on schedule overall, despite some of our challenges. Those challenges being, of course, COVID-19 showing up in primarily in March of last year, as we all know, a year ago. There have been some associated impacts from that, both on our project team in terms of timing, as well as with agencies, working with agencies. As I'm sure you know, most agencies, federal and provincial, are working from home. So there are extended timelines there. We do have some land encroachment and acquisition processes to work through. Some of those have been kind of opening in terms of elements of ownership, as well as past work that's been done to accommodate the road with existing development. So we're looking at potential design iterations that we may have to look at to accommodate that process. And as I noted earlier, our species at risk inventories were considerable for the project, and under our agreement with MECP and MNRF, we can't really disclose the specifics of those, but we have various species that I'm sure council and staff are used to hearing about in the township community for projects of this type and nature. For next steps, under the Class EA process, we're looking to wrap up the Class EA in the next while. Hopefully by the end of April, we're effectively completed, submitted reporting and such relative to the project. One of our next steps, as I noted earlier in the process, was to present where we are in the project, similar to today to council, and also provide some details to interested parties about the preferred alternative for their comment. Subsequent to that and receiving those comments, we would want to wrap up the project file report and move towards a notice of study completion, where everything gets submitted to the Ministry of the Environment for their review and a 30-day comment period. As that is being submitted and that process carries on behind the scenes, detailed design and engineering is planned for April to get going full speed in April and May, subject to comments and direction from council. The process for legal surveying, which is necessary, and one of the challenges that was identified, as I mentioned earlier, is underway now to confirm various areas of the alignment in terms of past acquisitions and how it relates to the alternatives being studied. The final phase, as you'll recall through the process, is the implementation phase or construction. Construction tendering is still planned for this fall to get a full package opened up and presented to council, hopefully within still the 2021 calendar year. That can be reviewed and considered and moving forward. We could be starting construction activities to some extent, certainly clearing, grubbing, within certain timelines, following protocols as early as January. And the plan overall for the entire project is to be completed by the fall of 2022, where final reporting would fall after that into be submitted to the funding authorities accordingly. So through your worship, I'd be happy to take any questions as you see fit.
Okay, thank you for that. Allison, so you'll put us back to the other screen. Okay, thank you for the overview, Tyler. And any questions of council?
I have a question, Mayor. Tyler, you indicated there are several options being considered or a part of the analysis process, the 90 kilometer, the 2 under 60 kilometer, and the one with don't do anything. And as you said, that does not necessarily represent the posted speed limit or what the speed is going to be once the construction is complete. But I'm just wondering if a decision has been made or when the decision will be made as to which of the 3 options is agreed upon or selected.
Through you, your worship, the process in terms of a preferred alternative is we are seeking the township's comments and support for alternative number 3, being the 60 km/h design speed, the modified option. We're seeking council's support for that so that the next step would be to go to the public for our public information center, gather feedback from them in a similar presentation and Q&A session. With respect to posted speed limits, that's often determined by the township independently. Most commonly, in this case, a 60 km/h design speed would often relate to a 50 km/h or possibly less for a posting. Currently, the road is posted at 60 near Calabogie Road. I believe it's the only sign currently posted, and a particular posting of a sign is outside of the current phase of what we're looking to reconstruct and build in through 2022. So the hope is as we continue through the process that we would be able to gather council's support for the recommendation or direction to pursue other alternatives or options if you wish.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. It's a great presentation, and I fully support the 60 km modified option for sure.
Any further questions? So, Taylor, if we were to look at, and you and I did speak about this before, but we didn't come to any kind of a conclusion on it. If we were to look at the design of 70 from the Constant Creek Bridge to Kennelly Mountain, how much work is involved in looking at doing a design for that section of the road? And I know your preference is to keep a road as one speed limit, but how much work is involved in looking at a 70 from Constant Creek to Kennelly Mountain and figuring out an additional cost on that, cost estimate?
To answer your question, your worship, we can discuss that with our designers and put together a summary of fees and time for that. Have to develop a 70 km/h alignment. So it kind of comes together its own profile. I won't get into the AutoCAD details of it, but it would take likely a focused time would likely take a week or two. And and then findings from that would, we would get updated preliminary drawings or a alternative, I guess, option, preliminary drawings for that section of road, and we would get updated or revised costing that comes from the quantity generated. So that could be applied in compared to the estimates, the cost estimates that were shared today, and good to review that. So I'd have to do that and come back to staff with that if council wishes.
Okay, and further question for the CAO. Do you know what our liability is, Allison, if we have a design of 60 and a posted of 60? I think Allison
I
maybe.
don't. I don't, but I will reach out to the township solicitor to seek direction or advice on that question.
I guess one of my concerns on this is this road has always been posted at a 60, and perhaps it should not have been, but it has been. We go and put in $4 or $5 million into the road, and now it can be only posted at a 50. So I do have a little bit of a concern with that. I know the first section of the road from 508 to the Constant Creek Bridge is very windy with a lot of sharp corners, like going around the Sandvilla Campground side road before you get to Constant Creek Bridge. But the next section of the road, you know, it's straighter and so on. And I would hate to see that posted at a 50. So I'm feeling for a couple weeks wait time for us to get a little more information before we make a decision on that might be the right thing to do. And I put that forward to council, what you think about that. And I don't know if Glenn may be frozen. I don't know if everyone's frozen. We got a very unstable internet today.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's part of the reason why I was asking the question I was asking, because I can't imagine the reaction, as you said, if the speed limit actually ends up being reduced. And it really has to be a treacherous road to not be able to manage 60 kilometers per hour. Now, I realize that sometimes you end up with hairpin turns and that sort of thing, very sharp corners, but you post those. You put warning signs up, informing people that these corners are only safe at a certain speed. But to have a road, how would I put it? A standard or regularly traveled road posted at 50 kilometers per hour in this day and age is, and again, to your point, after having spent, this amount of money on it, is mind-boggling. You expect it in built-up areas where there are homes and things like that, but if it's just a regularly traveled road, 50 kilometer per hour speed limit is somewhat surprising.
So would council be in, Councilor Rigglehoff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I'm also looking at not just the speed here, Councilor McPherson. I'm looking at the dollars. There was a big significant difference in the three options: over budget or come in within budget.
There was no option for a posted 60. It was 90 is what the other one was, and nobody's suggesting 90. I certainly am not suggesting 90. I realize, to build a highway is obviously going to be, substantially more cost. I'm just looking at the difference between 50 and 60 kilometers per hour for a posted speed limit.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Councilor McPherson. Is we're looking at what if we wanted to post the speed of 60 and not go according to TAC. So similar to option 3, but being able to post at at a 60.
Correct.
So, perhaps that's a design 70. How much additional cost is that? And could you bring back, an estimate on that? And in the meantime, perhaps Allison could reach out to our legal authorities and see what liability we have if the design is 60 and we're posting at 60. Where does that leave us?
Mhm.
So would council be okay, Councillor Perrier?
What does option 3 say? I've forgotten on the slide. Tyler?
Yeah, thank you. Through your worship, option 3 or alternative 3 is a 60-kilometer-an-hour design speed
Okay,
with a modified approach, and that is using the geotechnical information that is site-specific to help us reduce the amount of cuts and new material, which in return reduces cost. The TAC, or the Transportation Association of Canada, that is basic fundamental guidelines, which have flatter slopes, which requires more cut. And as we all know, driving through the roads, although beautiful, it is certainly windy, and topography up and down sideways is quite challenging for building new roads and realigning new roads. So it's a site-specific approach. That site-specific approach to the 60 could be applied to a 70-kilometer-an-hour design speed, as the mayor is suggesting, with council's direction.
okay, thank you.
So for the benefit of Councilor Rigglehoff, it would be, Charles, like a 3B that would be a 70 design, a 60 posted, but taking into effect all the efficiencies that Tyler had mentioned rather than going with CAC.
Oh, most definitely.
Mhm.
Okay, so can we decide then that Tyler will get back to us with a workup on that?
I'm in favor of that.
I'm in favor.
Okay, so we'll can we turn back to you, Tyler?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. It's very informative.
Great.
And
Thank you.
I believe that ends our delegations. We'll move into our regular council meeting. So facilities, we have no items under that. And Public Works, the Griffith Mile, 5031.
So this matter was presented to council in January. It's been an ongoing issue. And at that time, it was suggested that a committee may be formed. However, with COVID continuing, there was the idea of circulating a survey, which I've attached a draft in the Griffith area so that the visitors and ratepayers have an opportunity to complete it and provide feedback in preparation for a public meeting, which hopefully can occur later this year in Greenview. So the idea is that once the survey is finalized, that we would work with the transfer site attendant as well as local businesses to have this survey available for pickup and drop off.
Mhm.
Okay, questions of council? And I believe we're majority are frozen, so we'll have to speak if we want to. Okay, hearing nothing, so we'll move to the next is 5032. Oh, hold on. Yeah.
Sorry, further to that, also included in this report is a request for some signage coming into Griffith from both ends, so from the Denby area as well as from the Dacre, so that it's been suggested that advising vehicle traffic that they're actually entering a village may slow them down if they were to see a large reflective sign saying, "Welcome to Griffith," or something to that extent. So there's a cost associated with that. And it's estimated to be approximately $3,000.
And where would that money come from?
So the money would come from through a savings in the operating budget. We're early in the year with regard to our budget. So we would be able to, and we normally have a surplus. We've always had a surplus at the end of the year. And I can also follow up with the treasurer to see if these signs could also be purchased through our development charges.
Okay. So I'll read that resolution, moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. Council approves staff to proceed with purchasing signs to be located along Highway 41 in Griffith. Furthermore, the council approves the circulation of the survey when finalized. All in
And-
favor?
I think you need to put in another line about the signage. Does he not, Allison?
About what
About the- about spending the money for things.
About
no,
where they come from?
we don't have to, because we're not definite where it's coming from at this point. So it could be coming from savings and other line items, or it could be coming from development charges. If it does come from development charges, we will have to bring a resolution back because that's a reserve. Otherwise, it will just be funded through savings and other line items.
Okay,
Now, if council
sorry for the interruption, Mr. Mayor.
on the maximum amount to be spent on signs, then that's fine. But if not, that's fine too.
Okay, I'll just read that resolution again. Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council approves staff to proceed with purchasing signs to be located on Highway 41 in Griffith, and furthermore, council approves the circulation of the survey once finalized. All in favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
Thank you. Great. And next item is the capital works plan for the county of Renfrew, but I got them to send this and sort it out so we could just look at Greater Madawaska. I think John Frost had questions last time about the bridge in Mount St. Patrick and so on. So there's 3 roads that have been moved on this. It's ones I've been in discussion with the county for close to a year on now, and that was the Calabogie Road. So they were to redo the section from Mill Street to 511 in 2022. I'd asked them at one time to move it up to 2021 and they refused. Then they moved it to 2023. So we've been discussing that at length, and anyway, in the last council meeting at the county, they agreed to move it back to 2022 as it was originally forecast. And then the next section, which is Mill Street to Norton, will be done in 2023, and the section from Norton to the Peaks will be done in 2024. So that whole section would be done and widened. So that's going to, I think, be good for the area. And the road is in very bad shape. I walk it quite often, and it's the shoulders are really breaking up on it. But also to get the 1 meter hardened shoulders on the sides is going to be a big advantage. So then all the other roads, there's culverts being done up in Madawaska, and you see there's quite a bit of money being spent in the Greater Madawaska Township over the next 10-year period. So each year I'll be requesting that the county forward this to us. And if you have any questions on them, on all the bridge work, if it's slated for to be done, such as Mount St. Patrick Bridge is being done in 2023, well, there'll be preliminary work to the tune of $80,000 to $100,000 done in the year before. The culverts on Ferguson Lake are being redone this year, which is good timing because that'll be all completed before we do our section of Ferguson Lake Road in 2022. So that's there for your information. If you do have any questions, maybe you can forward them to me and I'll either be able to answer them or get the information from the county for you. And environment, we have nothing. Protection services. So the next one is 8031 building permit report. And so that's an information item, but you can see compared to last year, Darrell has had a strong start with the 2 months. He's up at $1 million already, and last year we were at 50,000. So we're expecting quite a strong year in the building department. 2011 to 2020 building summary. So this was a discussion that come up at the last council meeting. So after the meeting, I requested the CAO to have this prepared because there was some discussion whether it was an anomaly or not. So we got information back to 2011. And I think one of the interesting items here is the amount of our building permit fees. In 2011, we're at 58,000, and now we're at 75,000. So there is a significant amount of dollars coming in addition to what we were getting. And I think we had justified some of the help that is needed in both the building and the planning department would be paid out of that building increase of building permit fees section. So this, I think, gives a better idea of, what has happened over the last 10 years. Any questions of council on that?
No question, but again, I had requested this, and it does give a clearer picture, because we were only looking back to 2016, and the comment was made that we've basically doubled our the value of our building permits. But if you look back 2011, 2012, they were both very good years. We haven't doubled. We just happened to have a poor year in 2016. And matter of fact, in the 10-year period, there's only 1 year that's worse. So so that's why it's important to see the expanse of information when we're doing kind of comparisons.
Okay.
But definitely good to see the progress.
Thank you. And 8033 zoning bylaw amendment, Clark. Luke, do you want to speak to this one?
Yep, thank you. It's a zoning amendment for a specific property on Clark Road, which is off of Maloney Mountain Road, sorry, I should say. The property owner would like to construct a new dwelling on the property. There's already a dwelling there, and the access is by a seasonal road. So I have written a specific zoning bylaw to rezone the property to make it clear that this is a seasonal road, that we won't be obligated to change our maintenance of the road, but at the same time permitting the construction of a home on the property. And we had the public meeting, and nobody was in attendance.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah, and I commend Luke for putting together this bylaw and recognizing up front that it is on a seasonal road, because one of the problems if you don't do this and the people move in and they say, okay, we want to live here year round, and if we did not have this in, we'd be forced to provide them with a year-round access to the property. So I think this protects it very well. I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council approves bylaw 11/2021 to rezone lots 7 to 10 and concession 12 home from rural to rural exception 45 to permit a second dwelling on the subject land. All in favor?
Favor?
In favor.
Carried. Application to purchase township land, Peters and Duffy, and this was the one of the delegations earlier today. So the recommendation, do you want to speak to it, Luke?
Sure, yeah, I can. I think, well, we saw the delegation and I had some comments at that point as well. I think if I would just summarize it, is if the township didn't take the land, it likewise would not be available for sale. So, but I don't believe, I would recommend to council, we didn't act outside of our bylaws, and I don't think there was any issue in the process. So my recommendation is to refuse the land purchase application.
Okay, questions of council?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Rigglehoff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just waiting on Glenn there. He was slow to the draw. So thank you, Luke. Excellent presentation. I understand what you're saying with bylaws. That aside, is there any reason that we need to hang on to this land as opposed to making some money, take some revenue in?
Well, this is not a comment pertaining to the delegation, but I get calls on a daily basis and people think that township land, it's a garage sale for township land, that we should be selling land and to make people's properties larger. And it is almost a daily question that I get. And I don't think we should be entertaining these types of projects without a comprehensive plan, without knowing what the plan is for these pieces of land. Because if we entertained and we made a few $1,000s on all these, there's road allowances everywhere. And if the threshold was to make people's properties larger, we would have nothing. We would have no township land left. So I don't think, in my mind, as the municipal planner, it doesn't meet our land disposition requirements. It doesn't meet a threshold high enough. We would sell the land because, even specifically to the delegation, it is I've walked the property. It's a very beautiful. It's a very wet. It's a very environmentally sensitive area, and I don't know to what extent the privacy concerns exist. If it was in private ownership, it would be the same. I don't know if that changes any facts. But I just don't think, I would recommend that this doesn't meet a threshold requirement for us to sell land.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Rigglehoff. That's exactly the direction that I'm in. And it's really a difficult one because there's a difference between retaining existing right-of-way or concession lines that were established for a specific reason. This is not standard because it's not the standard width. It's now wider than a standard right-of-way would be. And so, my first thought was, as Councillor Rigglehoff had suggested, why would we want to hang on to it? Why does it matter? On the other hand, I'm thinking back to the presentation during the delegation, and one of the things that Marnie had said was, this is wet land. It's sensitive. It's sensitive land, environmentally sensitive, and we would never develop there anyway. And I'm thinking, for the same reason, we would never build a road there. So even if that land remains in the possession of the township, if we did build a road or a right-of-way, a passageway, I guess is a better way of putting it, a passageway into the lake, we would be doing it on the portion of the land that was acquired for that purpose, as opposed to the portion of the land that was ceded to the township just because it was of no value to the other, to the original owners. So I guess I'm now beginning to wonder, what it would actually accomplish for anybody. And to our planner's point, should we do it just because somebody's asked, or should there be a logical reason for it? And right now I'm struggling to find a logical reason for it.
Okay, and Lucy?
Yes, I'm just wondering, was there an issue? It seems that kind of came out in the presentation, that they would have acquired that property when they initially built their house. I'm not clear on it. Luke, can you clarify that?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, if if prior to the other property's issue was discovered, if there was, it didn't seem to me like there was an agreement of purchase. So I don't know where, at what point in time it was suggested that there was, you know, a negotiation or
Mm.
what have you. Maybe they thought that through when we did the swap for the road allowances that they had their eye on this orphan parcel of land.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like I said, we would have put an agreement registered on title to the property to say you're not getting a free piece of, you know, a free lot out of this error that so we negotiated privately with the
Yeah.
with the property owners, and you know, this is what shook out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think when the property owners that had their home inadvertently built on the road allowance, when they came back to us, it was going to cost a good chunk of money to get this surveyed, and then the land wasn't of much value to them. And I think they thought, being a environmentally sensitive property, that it might be in good hands being in the township hands. So instead of spending money with a property they couldn't do anything, they turned it over to us. Now, having said that, Luke, if the township decided at some point to sell the land, my understanding with the bylaw and disposition of property is that the Marnie Peters would be given an opportunity to purchase it. Is that correct?
Well, again, I mean, that's, she's put in an application to purchase it. But I don't, like, I mean, on the other side of the road like, again, in my mind, and what the bylaw says, there has to be a legal or technical reason for these to warrant the sale of land. And right now I can't identify one that may exist. So an application is in, and I'm treating this similar to another application to any other property owner who wanted to buy a portion of road allowance to do nothing more, but then to quote unquote increase their lot area and maybe increase their privacy. It just it doesn't meet.
Wasn't my question. What my question was is
Exactly.
if council decided in the future for some reason to dispose of that piece of property, I believe our bylaw says that the adjacent landowners would have an option to purchase.
Yes.
Okay, so if down the road we decide to, Peters and Duffy would have an opportunity to protect their interest in it.
Yes, I apologize for the wrong answer. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll read the recommendation then. So moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council hereby refuses to consider the application to purchase land from the township submitted by Marnie Peters and Martin Duffy, as an application does not meet the township land disposition standards. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
In favor.
Carried. And finance and admin, proxy voting by members of council.
This is an information item for council.
Okay, and is there any questions on that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
The only question I had when I read it, I thought, oh, that looks interesting, and maybe there would be instances where it would be beneficial, as they pointed out, especially when there's periods of illness or other things that occur that would make it impossible for a sitting councillor to be able to attend a meeting. Is this something that we would consider, are going to consider, or is it just an information item that at this point in time we're going to say that nice, file it? I guess the point is this something we should the question should be answered. Is this something that council is interested in? If not, great, but if we are, then, what would be the next steps to follow through on what would need to be done to the procedure or to put something like this in place?
Yeah, with us, I guess we had some discussion on it. So it is another option for us. Today, I don't see the need for it. Excuse me. Just because of Zoom meetings and, if we can't be in council and we're setting up so that we could have people attending by Zoom while the rest of people are in council. So the need for the proxy vote maybe isn't there, but the CAO is going to file it. And if it's something that we feel should be put in place, or if council has an argument and feels strongly that we could entertain it more sooner. But for now, we were going to file it as another option, that if we need it, it is there.
All right, and is this something that we have that freedom to do just that, to put it on the shelf for now, come back to a month from now, 6 months from now, 2 years from now, and act if we feel it's required? There are no restrictions or constraints that are put on us in terms of how we address that.
A question?
Councillor Perry?
Yeah, I'm not for or against. All I'm saying is the report reads that there's only one municipality effective November 1st, 2020 that's adopted this. So it might be a good idea for us to do a search and rescue of information to see how's it working, what are the pros and cons, and that might help council make a decision should the need arise.
Yeah, and this one hasn't come through county council, so I'll probably be hearing some more information on it there and see what all the other municipalities are feeling about it. My personal feeling was that we would store it for now. I don't know, Allison, do you have an answer to Glenn's question?
I don't believe there's a time limit on it. It's just advising that there's been a change to the Municipal Act that now permits the proxy voting.
Mhm.
So my understanding is that there is no timeline that this has to be put in place.
Okay. 9032 proposal at Chalk River.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I'm not
Okay.
quite sure what I'm supposed to do with this. Does council want me to bring this back in 6 months? Or do they want me to file it?
I think, I believe we received it as information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And if I hear more like through the county, or if any counselor wants to bring it back, well, we have the information. We know it's a possibility for us. Like, it's just, do you have the need? And I think today we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
and I would agree. One comment I would make, obviously, the current sitting council, we're aware of this. We know that that option is available. After the next election and a new council comes into play at the end of 2022, then this should be one of the items that, or could be one of the items that might should be brought before a new council, just to make them aware this option is available.
Yeah. I'd have to agree. That's a very good point, Allison. So you could do that at a January meeting after of the new council, perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay, proposal at Chalk River. So this is, unless any councilors feel differently, I think it's an information item. I sit on the committee at Chalk River, and there's a lot of work has gone into this disposal facility, but obviously it is storing radioactive material, and people are nervous about it. So I guess I turn it to council. Would you like to receive this as information, or is there any letters that you'd like to see written? And then we'd have to vote on that if so. And my suggestion is we receive it as information.
I agree.
Agree.
Yeah, that would be my preference.
Okay, Calabogie Animal Rescue funding request.
Before council is a letter from the Calabogie Annual Rescue. They're seeking $2,500 to hold a spay and neuter clinic in Greater Madawaska. It will be a one-day clinic. So I don't know what council would like, if they would like to proceed with providing the donation, or
I have a comment.
Councillor Perry.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with the funding this organization. I know they do a lot of work. They're all over the place. But if I look at $2,500 versus the $250 that we gave the food bank and the money that we gave the home support organization, I'm not saying that, I'm saying in comparison, the $2,500 to me is excessive. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
Yeah. Thank you for actually drawing out that comparison, Lucy, because again, I always struggle with public money being spent on something like this, or taxpayers' dollars. But having said that, what's more important, the feral cat community or our people? And that's a very good comparison, because I won't get into my own personal beliefs about managing cats and even dogs for that matter. But we do need to be cognizant of where tax dollars go, and we need to support our community, the people in our community, ahead of the animals in our community.
Okay, if I can make one more comment for Councillor McPherson, this is right up your alley. How much money does the SAC committee get from the township to do its programs and stuff? So I think it's $500. Is it, or $1,000
yes,
now?
No, 500 when it was operational.
Yeah.
Of course, nothing's been going on for a year, but yes, it was 500.
Okay, but they came out with that nice, that I rave about that publication, the information publication. I mean, the other townships are asking for copies, so yeah.
Good. Okay, well, I guess the other thing is we have done our allotment for donations for this year. So this kind of a request, if you're going back to them, this kind of a request really should be coming in the fall of the year prior to budget being set. Okay, the next item, 9034, is...
I'm sorry. So council's not interested in providing anything at this time, and to put a letter in the fall as part of the budget deliberations.
Yeah, our donation budget has been set for 2022 or 2021.
Mhm.
So the next item, 9034, Township logo. So this is one that was a close vote the last time, and I guess I broke the tie and said that we should look at going with a new logo. After the meeting, I met with the CAO and the treasurer, and the three of us decided to reach out to the contractor and get copies of the logos that they had done for other municipalities, and for us to do a review. So we did that. They provided us the information, and at the end of our review, we didn't see that they had done a logo that jumped out at us as something that we would want to move away from our logo to pick a design such as they had. So we're bringing it back to council to suggest that we do not go with a new logo and stay with the one that we have. And I believe the treasurer was going to reach out to the person who designed the last logo and see if we could do modifications, because one of the problems is it says the Township of Greater Madawaska, and it's very linear, and you know, if we could maybe rework that and put Township of Greater Madawaska underneath or something like that, it might be a logo that'd be a little easier to work with. But anyway, the decision is that we won't explore that further, and we just go ahead with our design of our internet. Yes, Councillor Perry.
2 points. I always applied the so what factor. So what if we don't change it? And I guess my next comment would be we could make it fun and make a contest so the people in the community could design a logo at less than $9,000, is it?
Mhm.
Anyways, just food for thought.
Yeah, and that was kind of decision. You know, there was concern about working with our logo, so that's why I took the opportunity to vote the way I did, was so that we could further explore it. But after exploring it, I think we should stay with what we have for now, and so my vote would change in that. So do we have a resolution on that, or is that information, Allison?
No, there's a resolution, I believe, before you.
Okay. And I see I missed it now. There was a resolution on Chalk River, but because we're filing that, that's just tabled.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council instructs staff not to proceed with developing a new township logo. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
In favor.
Carried. Alternative working arrangement. Allison, is you speaking to this, or Renee?
No, I'll speak to this. So this was discussed with council previously to see the appetite for permitting working for home or alternate working arrangements. I believe the policy that is before council has captured what was discussed. I've reached out to a number of other municipalities, including the county, to see what policies they have in place. It's quite frequent or common that there is a checklist and suitability checklist as well as the self-assessment. And then the safe guidelines for a safe workspace, because the ultimate goal is that our employees are in a safe work environment. So this has been, I did send it to to managers for comments. I received nothing back. So I don't know if there's any questions or concerns of council, or because if there is, this can absolutely be taken back and revised.
Questions of council? Councillor Perrier.
And you received no comments from staff, Allison? Is that what I heard?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council approves policy 3-22, alternative working arrangement policy as presented. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
Glenn?
In favor. You still can't see us?
No. Well, you're every now and then you move, but most of the time everyone is frozen.
We've got to get better internet for the mayor.
I'm in the township office, but anyway, economic development, 1003-1, independent electrical systems operator. And that's an information item. Bernie, one of our residents, sits on this board now. So he'll be presenting us information that he receives from the board, from the committee that he sits on. Yeah. Questions of council? No. Eagle Nest Trails and proposed parking area. Who's speaking to this one?
The planner can speak to this.
Yeah, so I put together, I think it's a memo, just with some information on the history of the trails, because we've had
So we're frozen up again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Luke's frozen.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, we need
issues in
heat.
the municipal office, it looks like.
Yes.
Did we
So
apply for Charlie? No, sorry.
Okay, well, all the information is there. So I guess there was questions about, whose trail is it and so on. So Luke put together this document, Luke and Kathy, I believe. And so it kind of shows the chronology of how we got into the trail business and so on. So I think we're bringing this as information that was further to the discussion at the last meeting.
that is correct.
Okay, is there any questions of council?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Riddle.
Thank you. So I know there was also the other correspondence with the Algonquins, and they seem to be supportive of this. So my question is, are we ready to go ahead and put this in before the April 15th deadline that M&R has imposed?
Well, what we've done is, based on that, on the correspondence with Luke, we've reached out to them. They've asked for a meeting. We've reached out to them about having this meeting, and we're waiting for them to give us a date. But we have made them aware that we are time sensitive. So we're hoping that that'll be in the very near future.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So just a question from myself, Mr. Mayor. The land that would be used for this proposed parking lot, is that M&R land?
It is county and M&R.
All right. And so have we received assurances from both groups that they're willing to provide that land for the development of a parking lot?
My understanding is we have. Is that correct, Luke?
Luke's gone.
No, Luke is actually in my office, so he can speak to it. You just won't see him.
Sorry, my computer is completely frozen. Yes, we have agreement from the M&R in principle, the Algonquins in principle, the county, absolutely. And the last thing that's still a wild card is we have to do species at risk screening. We're getting close.
And where would the parking lot be located? Where that semicircle is?
No.
No. It's in the package here.
Attached to my memo, I included two maps, one to show with some locations and then one with some dimensions.
All right.
For Councillor McPherson's, just going down the hill after where you're picturing that little parking lot at the top of the trailhead.
Yep.
Go down the hill to where people start pulling over again at the bottom when it's not busy at the second trailhead, and it's all that area off to the right there. It's all nice and flat.
So okay, that's what I was wondering. And yeah, pictures don't always tell me. It's always
that.
better to. So, all right, it still wouldn't resolve the issue of people having to cross the roadway.
No.
That's going to remain. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. To that point, though, that was our first choice, was to have it on the south side. But and we had picked one location, and when it was explored by Public Works, first of all, we couldn't get a big enough space, and it was very wet, and you're going into a hill that it didn't work out for us. So unfortunately, we got quite a slope on all that side of the road. So there will be crossing of the road. You know, my feeling is there would be no parking on the road, so it would get the cars off of the road is basically it on the north side.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Chairperson. 12031 library update.
Okay, just very quickly, what we've been up to, the annual survey is in draft form, almost completed. Allison's staff and two of our board members are working on audit and financials. The Revenue Canada 2019 submission was put in on December 31st at 11:30. That was the last day that we needed to submit that to get our grant. The 2020 package is in draft form, so we're ready to go there. The annual survey gives us $11,817 from the province. I applied for a connectivity grant and we got $1,700 there. The reopening is subject to us gaining access to the school. And I think Allison could probably add comment to this because there was a meeting held last week. So with the principal, so it looks like we're moving ahead with conditions, a soft launch. Facebook page has been is back up. We ordered PPE. We're ordering PPE. Our first batch of new books. We have 9 new patrons. We had 50 pickups. Anyway, that could go on forever. So the issue that was prominent at a couple of council meetings ago is how do we make things good for wards 2 and 3 since the library is far away? So the board is discussing with options, bring the library to the wards. And so with that, we have, I have 5 sponsors already. So the idea is that we would bring the books to Pine Valley, for example, or to a location in wards 2 and 3, based on what the need is for people, what books do they want, and transportation has already been organized. Okay. Just for your own information, based on the investigations that we're doing, Lanark Public Library give free memberships out or allow access for Almont, I think Arnprior and Perth, so they share the library. So Perth can go to Almont, Almont can go to Lanark. So that's just one example. I did ask library staff to contact both counselors from wards 2 and 3. I think, Glenn, you were probably contacted by Mrs. MacArthur to talk about stuff. So we have a speakers bureau lined up. For example, financial management, help to seniors, and even for people on Glenn's committee. I have 2 speakers, one for financial management for seniors and another one who is she's a counselor for the aged, for the seniors. So she's there. So I'm getting these sponsors. So we're gonna bring the speakers bureau out of Calabogie into wards 2 and 3. The only thing I would ask is I just need a contact from you, Glenn, and one from Jack. I think you have some people on the SAC committee, Glenn, that are seniors in your ward, correct? Gail Boucher.
I'm trying to remember back.
Yeah, Gail Boucher was on the SAC committee, was she not?
Yeah, but she's not from.
She's not from your ward, okay.
No.
So.
No, I don't think there was anybody from Ward 3.
Okay, you have one of our board members is in your ward. Her name is Nicole McKinnon, and she's the one that made arrangements with Pine Valley to act as a depot for Ward 3. So I just need a contact from Ward 2 from Jack. I'm not sure what the essence of the conversation was there. Let's see. I think that's about all I have. If you have any questions, just another point is we're going to initiate virtual reading. And so you all know Sharon Nichols came out with a book. It's something about your papa for kids. And so she does virtual readings in the States and Australia. And we were thinking that probably virtual reading with school kids or other kids in other wards would be fun. So that's another idea that we're coming up with. So that's all I have. Any questions?
I just have a comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
To say the new library board has been over the winter and everything through this COVID the new ladies have been putting in an enormous effort in keeping the library board or the library rather, through the board to be a viable need and connection for the community. And I just want to commend Lucy and the ladies because they do a lot of work in behind the scenes.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Questions? Glenn, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I guess I do. Because if I think back to the council meeting, when the proposal was made from Renfrew, what I recall hearing was from Councillor 2 and 3, that they were interested in that because their constituents have been after them for years to have the ability to visit and use the computers, that their kids can use the computers, visit the Renfrew Library because that's where they travel to. They do not travel to Calabogie. So I think what we have to look at is we got the proposal from Renfrew that they would operate the library here in Calabogie and provide access to the Renfrew Library. And then the library board has to say, if they do not agree with that, okay, here's the package that we're going to provide to satisfy members of Ward 1, 2, and 3 of the township. So we had Ward 2 and 3, with some concerns, and we also had the Herds Lake area with concerns because they can go to Renfrew in 10 minutes on a paved road instead of a 20-minute drive to Calabogie on a unpaved one. So I think we have to have the two and then council, because in the end, the library board is going to make a decision how they would like to go. And then council has to decide, are they going to support the library board and continue funding the library board as it is today? So
the decision was already made.
Why who?
Council was told the decision, I believe in 2 or 3 council meetings ago, is that let me rephrase that. I think Allison was provided with a document from the library board that they didn't want to do the amalgamation.
Okay.
So if I may,
Yep.
so yes, that did go to council in a closed session. But there was request of the library board to provide additional information to be brought back in a closed session.
Okay, so we brought back, I believe the board brought back information, not last council meeting, the council meeting before, there was a 3-page report that was provided to council.
So that was what was provided was in January, and that was them saying no. And at that time, council asked for additional information. And to date, I haven't received anything further.
Okay, so what was the 3-page report that was submitted to council? Wasn't that done in January,
Yes.
Allison? Okay, so what is it exactly that the council would like from the library? I think I'm getting phone calls. Well, what's this and what's that? Can we just put something so that's clear? You tell me what you would like me to advise the library board to give you.
So I think I may be able to assist you with that, Lucy, as we have the minutes from the meeting. So
Okay, but
you and I could chat offline.
Okay, we can chat offline, but I want this to be a council decision.
Yep.
I want the instructions to come from council, because you find it very surprising that not all the councillors are aware of the MOU that was submitted back in November, of the fact that the presentation that was given to council was given to the library board the day of the presentation. Therefore, we didn't have a chance to look at numbers. So let's make it clear, and let's everybody's on the same page. That's the important thing for me.
Okay. I guess Councillor McPherson, I believe it was yourself and Councillor Frost that spoke up, about concern about your constituents visiting the Renfrew Library. So,
Yeah.
and in the, so I can't recall the exact minutes, but you would have them, Allison. So I was expecting something to come back to council saying, here's how we would satisfy wards 1, Herds Lake, plus wards 2, plus wards 3. And I think there was one item in the proposal that said it was at more cost, but Renfrew's proposal had more hours. Therefore, you know, instead of the budget going up, if you're not dealing with apples to apples,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if we pulled the hours back, Renfrew providing the hours that we provided before, was the cost the same? Which way we go, you know, is probably of most concerns to Councillor Frost and Councillor McPherson.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to satisfy their constituents. So how do we come up with what we want the library board to
I'm sorry, Mayor. I'm going to have to just skip out just for a minute. This is a medical call.
Okay. Allison, is there anything that is there anything that you can put together like what Lucy is saying and then have it circulated to council?
Yes, I will circulate it to council. I'll circulate it to, I'll discuss it with Councillor Frost and Councillor McPherson to ensure that their concerns are addressed and then I'll circulate it to all of council.
Yes, because like Councillor Rigglehoff mentioned, I know that this board, you know, they're very eager and they're doing a lot of very good work. But I mean, because this other proposal is on the table, we have to deal with that proposal and, you know, have both Glenn and Jack with answers that they can go back to the constituents with. Here's how you're going to be taken care of.
If I may, I would like more than a couple of hours spent on how the finances work, because the board looked at the proposal put in by Renfrew and the money just didn't meet the challenges. It was not for them. They had an issue with the financials.
Well, maybe perhaps you and Allison and Renee could work, because maybe somebody needs to sit with our treasurer and so that make sure that the board understands the proposal.
The board has been working with the treasurer through the audit. So if you would like the same board members to deal with Renee, I don't have an issue with that. They can go. Yeah.
I was getting the impression from you that there was some misunderstanding. That's why I suggested that you.
No. This is what I'm trying to say is everybody has something to say, but together we're not saying, here's what we want the library to give us.
Okay.
Okay, so I get a call, for example, the library has a proposal. Well, no, it has thoughts. There's no proposal in writing because we've been doing the audit. We've been doing the, you know, the annual report. There's a whole bunch of other things that we've been involved with.
So Allison is going to work with you, and then she'll work with Councillor McPherson and Councillor Frost.
Okay.
And make sure that this is what the request is, and that will go to you to take to the library board.
Okay. So
yes.
So just for statistical purposes, there's only 67 people from wards 2 and 3 that have library cards. And there are only 100 books that have been taken out, and that 67 is not even, it can't be super, it's not a super accurate number because the postal codes are used. So I'm just saying.
And Lucy, did you check with the number of people that can't afford to buy their own membership?
Well, that's impossible to do. I could do a survey if you want me to. I could do that.
No, but I mean, you're saying this number, they've come to us because they said, well, we're have to pay taxes to support the library in Ward 1. Why
Yeah.
should we have to go and pay for a card on top of that?
Mm-hmm.
Like
True.
that's always been the argument, you know, I've had it from more from Ward 2. I never had it from Ward 3.
Yeah.
Mm,
So if I may, first of all, I apologize for stepping out. I should not have let that happen. But on this particular topic, so yes, Councillor Perrier, I did have a a lengthy conversation with Ms. MacArthur,
Mhm.
and so this is one that I really struggle with because there is no good solution for Ward 3. Let's just be honest about this, and it's not a criticism. It's geography.
Mhm.
That's what it really comes down to. I can, back to what the mayor had said a few minutes ago about people in Ward 2 that are 10 minutes away from the library in Renfrew.
Mhm.
That's the sort of situation where, your son or daughter has a homework assignment or something like that, and you say, okay, jump in the car, let's run to the library.
Mhm.
In Ward 3, it's not a short trip, it's a
Yeah.
long trip. And so nobody's just going to jump on the car to drive to Renfrew to use the
Mhm.
library facilities. So you're going to roll that into something else that you're doing. And so, it could be quite challenging, even if we had full access to the Renfrew Library, for people to actually make much greater use of it than they would the Calabogie Library.
Mhm.
Obviously, people do their shopping and that in Renfrew, but again, they still have to coordinate, plan for dropping kids off at the library, or actually plan that as part of their trip to go and spend time at the library. So yes, I can see where it would be advantageous to a certain degree,
Mhm.
but it certainly isn't going to be the answer. On the other hand, when it comes to a proposal, and I looked at that proposal for joining the Renfrew library system, and it looked pretty good on the surface to me. Again, I'm not sure how much we can say here, in the public forum around this particular topic, but certainly in my discussion with Ms. MacArthur, there are some things that she stated to me that were somewhat eye-opening. I won't say earth-shattering, but she did convince me that she was able to make those comments or statements based on due diligence, as opposed to somebody who's just speaking from their heart, or based on feeling.
Yeah.
And this is the challenge here with this particular topic. And Mr. Mayor, you're correct. I did make a big issue of this, as I believe Councillor Frost did, and it is something that matters because this is a service that we want for the entire municipality. But coming up with that acceptable response or answer, it's not an easy thing to do. And so the steps that have been suggested, maybe that's the best approach, is let's try and take that step to get a little more coordinated
Mhm.
and understand what the opportunities are. Again, in speaking to Ms. MacArthur, she had suggested that there's a desire and the momentum to create some good programs that would reach out, that would actually do outreach, as opposed to just sitting back in Calabogie and say, "Here we are, come to us."
Mhm.
And maybe that's the solution if that structure comes to fruition. But it is something that will take time and isn't going to be figured out overnight.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I guess that's where I was trying to get at. If council has to come to a vote, I would like the library board to have an opportunity to put in front of council, here's exactly what we'll do, and perhaps they'll be excited about it and want to remain the way we are. you know, because right now I don't think there's enough information for council to make a good decision based
Yeah.
on information. So let's try again, and we'll work on it a little further. Okay.
Sounds good. Perfect.
Thank you. Chairperson. Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. Be it resolved that the following minutes are approved by Council February 16th, 2021 Special Council. All in favor?
In favor?
In favor.
So Mississippi. Oh, Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority. So this is an information item. It's amendments to their act. So it's all in the package. Was there to be received as information? Okay.
Okay.
And now we're moving into a closed session. Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. Be it resolved, the council meeting March 15, 2021 at 4:57 p.m. Enter into closed session pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act, litigation or potential litigation, causeway easement, 239.31. A meeting of a council or local board committee of either of them may be closed to the public if the following conditions are satisfied. The meeting is held for the purpose of educating or training. At the meeting, no member discusses or otherwise deals with any matter that materially advances the business decisions of council. Virtual meetings. All in favor?
In favor?
Favor.
So we'll move to